So this is me trying to follow up on a situation way back from 2016. In fact, the very beginning of 2016. So this has been a long time coming. It's purely because I just haven't followed up on it and I just haven't kept up to date on it. But I think it's, because we haven't covered it for some time on this channel, I think it's well worth just going over particularly this situation. Now, what am I talking about? You may not know. So, I have said for the longest time that if you want to go somewhere, or could pick a country where people's craziness for anti-vax was off the charts, you'd be hard struggled to think that I wasn't talking about the US. But you are completely 100% wrong. I am actually talking about Australia. Yes, bizarrely, Australia is the biggest hotbed of quacks and quack doctors and anti-vax nonsense I have ever come across. And I have often said to anybody from Australia, can you explain why this has happened? Because I don't know what has happened in Australia for this to become like it has. But like I say, I'm completely lost. So if anyone from Australia could actually explain that, I would love to hear from someone why that is the case. But on to the main event. So, you may or may not know of a person called Judy Wildman. And Judy Wildman is infamous currently at the moment in Australia because this person is a prominent anti-vaxxer who wrote a PhD thesis based on a conspiracy theory, and because of that she is now a doctor, or has a doctorate, shall we say. This is absolutely insane, this entire story. I mean, I'd invite you to go back and have a look at this whole saga back from the beginning of 2016, because I made, there's a good 5 or 6 videos we went going over this, but I will summarise essentially what happened. So, Judy Wildman goes to the University of, let me try and pronounce this correctly, it's Wollongong. I think that's how you say it. I hope that's how you say it, but I've been told that I was pronouncing it wrong in my original videos, so hopefully I've got that right. And when you do your PhD thesis, particularly in Australia, it's different in how we do it in the UK. When she was getting her PhD confirmed, the alarm bell was raised because Judy Wildman had basically written a PhD thesis, a doctoral thesis, on the conspiracy theory that the World Health Organization and pharmaceutical companies were keeping the fact that vaccines didn't work under wraps. So, to put it another way, she basically wrote, imagine she was going for an engineering course or an architecture course, and wrote her doctoral thesis on the fact that 9/11 was an inside job. You may be laughing, but believe it or not, this person actually got through. Wollongong University approved her doctoral thesis and she became a doctor, and as a result all sorts of scrutiny was literally dropped on it. Now, what happened? Now, when you do a doctoral thesis to begin with, you are given someone who should be knowledgeable, or at least aware of that field of expertise. She was not given someone who was knowledgeable in that field of expertise, even though there was someone available at the university who could have been her doctoral advisor. The person who did it, now I can't remember his name, defended her thesis as a point of academic freedoms, that if the university denied her this thesis, it would destroy I'm trying to remember what he said now, the intellectual credibility of the university. And that's if they denied her a thesis. But remember, this thesis was written on the back of basically a conspiracy theory that the World Health Organization has kept under wraps that vaccines do not work. This has been an absolute insanity. And luckily, as part of her getting her doctorate thesis, 2 out of the 3 doctors who looked over her thesis basically went, "It's well written, and that's about it." So you had one doctor who basically just wrote it off and just said, yeah, whatever. The other 2 basically said, it's got a good structure and it's written well, but the rest is a load of claptrap. We can't fully confirm putting this through. And because of how the Australian higher education system works, she got through. She got a doctorate. Now, what would have been more hilarious, and this would have been genius if this had been done. So, I know this is how it is in the UK. I don't know if it's like this everywhere. It's obviously not like this in Australia. But you have to do something, after you've written your thesis and it's been checked, you have to do something called what we call a doctoral defence. You have to go in front of other doctors who are experts in their field or have a similar doctorate, and they read your doctorate before, and you give a presentation on your doctorate why it is correct. They then ask questions about your doctoral thesis. Because this is why it's called a doctoral defence, because you have to defend your thesis against very stern criticism. Wildman did not have that because that was not in place in Australia. And to this day, the fact that this university gave this woman a doctorate based on literally a conspiracy theory is mind-blowing. And luckily, Wollongong University are still to this day gaining flack over her getting this thesis, over her doctorate from this university. And only a couple of days ago, they released a statement from her, and she was admonishing, I think it was the Australian, what do they call them now? Like their head medical scientist. I can't remember what they call it now in Australia. Basically admonishing him for advocating that children receive vaccinations. You can't make this up, and this is insane. And I can't believe still to this day she has a doctorate. Now, her doctorate was not in vaccination. I think it was something else. I can't for the life of me remember what it was off the top of my head. But like I say, I did like 6 videos covering all this in depth. So if this video has interested you in this, like I say, they're on my channel. Like I say, there's about 6 videos where we cover this in depth and go over this. So if you found this interesting, then I highly recommend going checking out those videos, because like I say, in those videos we go a lot more in depth, particularly of what happened. But I am still shocked to this day that the university defends her getting this doctorate as a point of academic freedom. Because what does it say about academic freedom, where you can write a PhD thesis, the highest level of academic credentials you can get, and it was based on a conspiracy theory, and not providing any evidence. Like I say, we even went over someone who had gone over her whole thesis and the stuff that she came out with. I think she even went over the fact that vaccinations were used by the Nazis to help quell the Jewish population, something like that, from what I remember. But it was her entire thesis, like I say, was built on a ridiculous, stupid conspiracy theory, and they gave her a PhD. I still cannot believe this to this day, that the university can justify it like that. It's absolutely unbelievable. But there you go. So that's me recapping it. Like I say, if you are interested in more in-depth of this, like I say, I did 6 videos where we go all over this stuff very in-depth. So if you're interested in that, like I say, go back and watch those videos. But if you're not, good Lord, Wollongong University, what are you doing? Still allowing this woman to have the highest academic credential you can achieve based on a conspiracy theory. I still cannot believe she's allowed to call herself a doctor, but there you go. But this calls into question your complete, education of giving out PhD thesis. I mean, could I go and get a PhD thesis on, the deep state JFK assassination history? I don't know. It's completely insane. The stuff you could justify if you go to that university and you don't get a doctoral PhD thesis. You could write it about the most outlandish thing ever. But as I say, so long as it's well written and structured, you're fine. It doesn't even have to provide any evidence. But there you go. And that's how, if you want a doctorate, get yourself down to Australia and go to Wollongong University and write a PhD thesis about whatever the hell fantasy you want, because apparently that's how what passes for academic intellectual study at Wollongong University.